Hey there everyone, my name is Quan and welcome to my XCOM 2 modding tutorial video 2, reading code and finding things, featuring shotguns. Now before I get started with the video, couple things quickly. In the description there will be timestamps linking to specific parts of this video if you want to skip around or get to certain parts. That'll help you. Additionally, I have linked an addendum, or an attachment, that is essentially a written form of this video. So if you wish to read through that instead of listening to my stupid voice, or in addition to listening to it, then feel free. Otherwise, let's get started. So, people want to make mods, and one of the most common things people want to make is weapons. And so today I'll be looking at shotguns and how they're made. Before you can make a weapon, you have to figure out how XCOM did it. Or specifically, how Firaxis did it in XCOM. So let's create a new mod. This new mod is incredibly important. We're going to name it Default. And it will be of the type default mod, XCOM 2, description literally doesn't matter, title doesn't matter, it can be whatever, and the reason it doesn't matter is because this mod will not be uploaded. This mod is specifically to look through the game files. That is all it's for. Now, project's been created, we go to SRC, we go to XCOM game, classes, massive list of things that make up all of the code. So, we want to figure out how weapons work, and we want to figure out specifically how shotguns work, because shotguns are cool. So, search solution explorer. Let's see if we can find anything shotgun related. Shotgun? No results found. That just means there's no files named shotgun. What about weapon? A lot of files named weapons. Too many for me to look through. Yeah, nothing that looks like shotgun. Couple promising files, but let's search it another way. If you hold Control, Shift, and then hit F, you will get a find and replace that allows you to find in files and replace in files. So let's go ahead and search for shotgun this way. We will get an enormous list of stuff. We have UI definitions, UI utilities, behavior tree, none of that matters. Default schematics, that's important for weapons, but not the focus. A schematic is the thing in the engineering lab that allows you to build the weapon. Default upgrades, this looks like attachments and stuff. Not quite a shotgun. Keep scrolling, we get default weapons. Now, default weapons, that seems to be more important. And here we go, shotgun conventional base damage, all sorts of weapon listings. This looks like the right place. So let's go through this bit by bit. Class X2 item default weapons. This is the name of the class. Everything in Unreal Script is a class. And this extends the X2 item class, which means it's basically an X2 item with more stuff added to it. Config game data underscore weapon data. This indicates that it's pulling from an INI file, or a configuration file that's outside of this editor. Where are those located? They are located, at least on my computer, in the C, Users, Quan, Documents, My Games, XCOM 2, XCOM Game, Config location. And here you will see all of the INI files the base game uses. The one in question was game data underscore weapon data, which is this one. It just has XCOM in front of it because XCOM. And we open that, and we'll see here all of the stats that weapons use. You have your base damages, you have your ability damages, you have your various ammo consumptions, your all sorts of stuff. Let's go through this bit by bit. Var config int. Int is integer. And integers are just whole numbers. So melee accuracy, it's probably like 10. Yeah, so it's just 10. That's just a number. This file will use that number in some way. Var config weapon damage value. So this is a variable pulled from a config that is of the type weapon damage value. And this is an integer, and this is blue because it's a base class. This is not blue, meaning that it's been defined somewhere in these files. So if we wanted to go look at exactly what a weapon damage value is, we could hit Control Shift F and search weapon damage value. and there will be a lot of instances of it, and it's actually quite tricky to find. But you'll see here, local weapon damage value something else. That indicates that it is defining something of the type weapon damage value. So what you want to find is something that says either function weapon damage value or struct weapon damage value, something like that. And you can see here, var weapon damage value, not useful. Tactical game rule set data structures, struct native weapon damage value. Since it's just this by itself, you can tell that it's a definition. And you can see here, cool, weapon damage value. It is a structure, so a data type that is native, meaning you don't need to type the file name before this data type to reference this data type. Everything can reference it globally and natively. And you can see that it contains a bunch of variables. It has a damage amount, the spread amount, +1, crit, pierce, rupture, shred, which these comments explain thoroughly. And you can see when you look at the file that the base damages of type weapon damage value have those matching identifiers. See, we have damage, spread, +1, crit, pierce, shred, tag, and damage type. So yeah, everything's there. So going back to our default weapons, and by the way, all of the tabs that we've opened will be listed up here. You'll see that we have a bunch of weapon damage values. We have some array weapon damage values, and an array is just a collection of things. So this would be a collection of weapon damage values. Right now it's just a collection of one thing each, but maybe it adds more later. I'm not sure. And then down here you see more weapon damage values for all the random enemy weapons. You see Advent and Alien melee weapon damage values, data values for specific abilities, which some of them are arrays, some of them are just weapon damage values. And then you get to the core properties and variables for weapons. So you have your aim, which is how likely it is to hit, crit chance, likeliness to crit, eye clip size, which is the base number of shots you can take before having to reload, eye sound range, which is how far things have to be, or how close things have to be in order to react to the sound it makes. Environment damage, which is how much damage it does to the environment. Supplies, which is its cost. Trading post value, how much you get for it when you sell it to the black market. And eye points, which is its cost in multiplayer games. And you can see here, defines the config values for all sorts of things. You have your range modifier tables, which are an array of integers, so a collection of numbers. And we can actually go see that in this file. We have all of the aims and crit chances and stuff, going past that. And here, short conventional range. Inside the brackets is an index. So the index is at location 0, you have 0, 1 is 40, and so on. The way that this table is interpreted by the game is that if you're 1 tile away, you have an aim bonus of 40. If you're 2 tiles away, you have an aim bonus of 35. If you're 3 tiles away, you have an aim bonus of 32, and so on. Short conventional is actually the table used for shotguns that are the shotguns you start with, conventional firearms. So this table actually happens to be very relevant for us. We have short, medium, long, and flat. So that's all well and good. That's just pulling all of the stuff from the INI file. All sorts of stuff from the INI file. We won't need to look at that too much. I'll just minimize it for now. Next, we have a static function array x2 data template CreateTemplates. This is a static function, meaning that it is a function that can be accessed anywhere and is a thing that does a thing. Functions do things. It is a function that creates an array or works with an array x2 data template, which is a collection of x2 data templates. And the function's called CreateTemplates, so I'm assuming it creates this collection of data templates. So inside the function, denoted by this curly brace, we have local array x2 data template weapons. What this line does is creates an array or a collection of data templates called weapons that can only be accessed while in this function. Nothing outside of this function should be able to access it. And then below you can see weapons.add item and then create template shotgun conventional. And this indicates that we are adding whatever template is created by this function to the weapons template. Weapons template array, rather, since this is a collection of templates. So this function creates a template and adds it to this weapons array. And this appears to add every single weapon to this one array, and it returns the weapons array. So in order for your weapon to exist and be added to the game, it will be you will need to add it to an array similar to this one. And of course, next video, when we actually get into making stuff, I'll show you exactly how to do that. But for now, we want to see how to create the template for the shotgun. So let's search for Create Template Shotgun Conventional. And so I will go ahead and highlight that, copy it with Control C, hit Control F to search within file. And I didn't copy that correctly, so let me just copy a part of it. Search for that. Okay, it doesn't like me for some reason. What if I just search shotgun? Oh, there we go. Create template shotgun conventional. Yeah, I don't know why it didn't like me. It might be that you can only search for the complete thing as a whole unit by default. And so it managed to find shotgun for me, but I'm not certain what it did wrong with that. For now though, we have the static function x2 data template create template shotgun conventional. So static function means that it is globally defined. No other functions can exist called create template shotgun conventional because that would conflict with it. And it is of the type x2 data template, meaning it returns an x2 data template. Now, inside this function, we have local x2 weapon template. But what is a weapon template? Let's go find out. Are there any files called x2 weapon template? Why, in fact, there is. Class x2 template extends x2 equipment template. So this is an addendum to the x2 equipment template class. Native core means that it's a native core file for the game, and it is unlikely that you'll be defining any native core classes, so I won't get into that right now. Depends on means that these classes it depends on must be registered first. And it will try to register these classes before this class if they are not already registered. So if you have a class that depends on another class, you use this. Config weapon tuning means it pulls from the weapon XCOM game XCOM game weapon tuning.ini file, which if we check, we can see that right at the bottom. And now this class contains a lot of stuff. It contains structs that are used for ability icon and animation overrides, and a ton of variables. And it has very helpful tooltips. So I won't go into what these are too much since it's very helpfully described here. A name is just the name of a something. The integers are just numbers. Floats are floating point numbers, which means they can be fractions and all sorts of weird numbers. Bool is short for Boolean, which can be either true or false. So in this case, we have Boolean infinite ammo. Tooltip no loading required. So if this Boolean is true, most likely what the game does is if it's true, weapons do not need to be reloaded and consume no ammo. If it's false, then they act like regular weapons. Relatively straightforward. Now all of this stuff in this file is not actually a weapon. It is a template for a weapon. It is a blueprint. It is what a weapon should have and should look like. So it is very helpful to look at the template for the thing you're making to see what it should have. So yeah, weapons should have categories, technologies, they should have armory camera point tag, they should have a range, radius, coverage, they should have a typical action cost. This is what a weapon should have. It does not need to have it, necessarily, but it should have as much of this as possible. And that means that your weapon that you create should have as much of this as possible. It has a bunch of functions as well. Classes have functions, so this one validates the template. This one adds an ability icon override and gets it. There's also several functions that add extra damage or add a default attachment. Basically allow you to modify the weapon in some way. Find out if it is low tech or high tech, get localized categories, get a bunch of stuff. Any function that says get in a template generally means that it's going to return some part of that template. Usually you don't want to access the data directly, you want to have functions that will allow you to return it safely. Because if you can access directly, then you can mess with it. And if you can mess with it, you can break things. And if you break things, that's bad. So functions that return values are very safe and useful for interacting with it. And if you want to interact with a class without actually changing the class itself, you would use these functions. And at the bottom is a default properties. Now in Unreal Script, default properties is what the class will look like before you touch it. So anytime you create a weapon of the type X2 weapon template, it will have an item category of weapon, range of -1, coverage of 100, Overwatch action point of Overwatch, default projectile, so on. If you don't change anything about your weapon, this is exactly what it will look like. So that's what a generalized weapon should look like. So let's go back to what the shotgun actually looks like, now that we know what it should look like. Here we have a native function, create underscore X2 template, class X2 weapon template shotgun CV. This marker in the front, this little, I don't know what it's called, but it's below your tilde to the left of the 1 key usually. That dash indicate, it's not a dash, God, mark something, I don't know. That mark indicates that this is a template creation function that is not defined within the Unreal Script files. It's defined in C++ somewhere else, and you can't look at that directly, as far as I can tell. If someone has been able to look at what's inside this function, please tell me. But for now, don't worry about how this function works or anything, just know that it's necessary to have this function in order to create the template for a weapon. And so this takes the class X2 weapon template, the object template above, and the shotgun underscore CV package and combines it into a weapon. Now, the shotgun underscore CV package we'll get into in a little bit. That's important for models and sounds and stuff, but we'll look at that later. Template.weapon panel image. This is the image that you see when you're looking at the weapon in the armory or when you're adding modules to the weapon, and it's underscore conventional shotgun. Template.item category. This is just what kind of item is it? It's a shotgun. Weapon category. What kind of weapon is it? A shotgun. Weapon tech level. Conventional. It shoots bullet. STR image. This is the image that you see at the bottom right in-game. So like when you're in a tactical mission and it's showing the weapon at the bottom right with the green modules attached to it, this is that image, and it pulls from the UI library. The equip sound is the conventional weapon equip, or just a generic sound for equipping any conventional weapon. And the tier is the technological tier level. 0 is usually starting weapons. So if it's a tech level 0, you'll probably start with it, but this does not guarantee you'll start with it. All of this stuff, accuracy damage, aim, crit chance, clip size, sound damage, environment damage, that's just the INI file declarations from earlier. Number of upgrade slots, how many things you can add to it. Now this bit, template.inventory slot equals einvslot underscore primary weapon. This tells the weapon that it's going to be in the primary weapon slot. And so if anything looks at this weapon and is like, hey, what's your inventory slot? This weapon will be like, it's inventory slot primary weapon. I am a primary weapon. Very important to include. Template.abilities.addItem standard shot. So abilities is an array that contains a bunch of abilities. And some of the abilities are like standard shot, Overwatch shot, reload, hot load ammo, stuff like that. This just means that the weapon will give you those abilities. Next, we have the single most important line of any weapon ever. template.game archetype equals WP underscore shotgun underscore CV dot WP underscore shotgun underscore CV. This line right here tells the game where to find all of the sounds, animations, models, physics, the works, exactly as the comment above says. So let's actually go look at this. We're going to pop open the XCOM editor, paste in WP underscore shotgun underscore CV, look at all assets. And here we have WP underscore shotgun underscore CV archetype. Let's go ahead and double click this. And we get WP underscore shotgun underscore CV properties. And there we go. There we go. It contains a lot of things. Sounds, XCOM weapon, weapon, inventory, movement, display, attachment, actor, collision, physics, blah. Don't worry about all that. For now, just know that the important parts are XCOM weapon and weapon. XCOM weapon tells it what hand to use, so right hand, what projectile to use, projectile effects, unit pawn animations, what aim profile to use, whether it should be held like a rifle or a pistol or like a rocket launcher or whatever. The fire animation sequence, kill animation sequence, how it looks when moving and running, all that stuff. What textures to use under UI textures, and so on. Under weapon, you'll see fire interval, spread, instant hit, which it doesn't use because it's a projectile. Fire offset, which appears not to be used. A lot of this is not used because this is stuff it can use, not necessarily stuff it does use. Stuff that it does use tends to be bolded or have like a 1 in it, indicating that there's something there. Mesh. The mesh is the 3D model that the shotgun uses. So this shotgun uses the WP underscore shotgun underscore CV dot WP underscore shotgun underscore CV colon gun attached mesh component. So this mesh component, and we could go look at this, is how the shotgun looks. Hey, shotgun. So yeah, here's our shotgun. That's what it's using. That's how it knows what it's using. And this archetype is how the code knows what to use. This line tells us to go into this file, to go into this skeletal mesh, to use that model for the shotgun. A little bit of a winding trail, but you see how it gets there now, I hope. Animation tree sequence, which is like animations used for actually shooting. Physics asset, so the physics of the shotgun. Animation set, which is similar to above. There's a lot of details that go into all of this, and it's very complicated. Models are super wild and out there, and I'm not going to get into any of that right now, because this is programming specifically. You can look through all this. You know where to find it now. I've just shown you if you want to look through all of it. But none of that's super important at this time. That's just what this line is doing, is pulling all of that stuff into the game. So, moving on. Template.UI armory camera point tag equals UI pawn location underscore weapon upgrade underscore shotgun. This line tells you what camera to use when you look at the model in the armory. So if you go into the armory and say, I want to look at this shotgun, then it will use this camera location, which is defined elsewhere. And every single modded weapon I've seen has just used one of the default ones. Like even Long War's SMGs just use the assault rifle camera point. So if anyone has an example of this, someone making their own UI pawn location, please show me. Otherwise, I'm going to move on. Add default attachment. This adds the models that the weapon uses for attachments. So shotgun foregrip, shotgun magazine, shotgun rear grip, shotgun stock, so on. This just links models to the attachment type. This doesn't actually do any of the behavior of the addition. It doesn't say like this will instant kill anything. This is purely for the visual addition. Physics impulse. This determines how far a body will fly when this bullet hits it and if it turns into a ragdoll. So if I shoot a Muton and it hits it, it will move it with an impulse force of 5. And I'm not certain exactly what 5 means, just that it's like a moderate amount. If we make it 5,000, then it's going to go way further, like 1,000 times more force. And when we get into making a weapon, we'll play around with that a bit. Knockback damage amount, knockback damage radius affect the environment specifically. So if you hit something and it moves and it hits the environment, how much will it damage the environment? And we'll damage it by 10 in a radius of 16. Template.upgrade item. This says, what item replaces this item? Shotgun MG, which I'm assuming is magnetic. So if the shotgun magnetic is made, then it will replace this weapon. Starting item. Is this an item you start with? True. Can it be built? False. You start with it. Why would you be able to build it? Damage type. Template name. So this does the damage type projectile _ conventional. And then at the end of it all, it returns the template. So when something calls this function will be like, I'm going to do this stuff and then hand you this template. And then the thing that called it above, let me see if I can find that exactly. Yes. The array CreateTemplates will take the template that function below returned and add it into here. And once it's in here, then it's ready to be shipped into the game. That's how shotguns are made. Ooh, okay, so that was a little bit complicated, and I may have stumbled at a few points. I apologize. Definitely read through the linked guide if you want to have a more clear and solid written compilation of the information. If you have any further questions, feel free to ask. And like always, if you have any criticisms, please tell me how I can improve. And next time on XCOM 2 modding tutorial, we will actually make a weapon and show you how to use what you have learned to understand here. See you then.